Thank you for tuning in to Andronetalks Radio, gathering as one in our sovereign truth from a galactic perspective, exploring our world with new ideas, knowledge, and a promise of a better future. Galactic discussions for galactic-minded people. Andronetalks.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm going to be joined with Chris. We're going to talk about many topics that are happening, not only for the Yellow Vest, but for some other agendas and issues. It is heating up regarding becoming very transparent in what they're trying to do. And a lot of the stuff, some of the stuff that I've been talking about for a while, and here it is. So we'll start to discuss this. We're not going to make you wait any longer. I'm bringing in Chris right now. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Jess. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well as can be. Looking at a lot of the interesting news. I have some people that are sending me articles every now and then. Jennifer's one of them. She's really good at keeping track of what's going on in the media. And so there's a lot of different things that are going on. Even I've noticed things on Facebook too. People are really diligent in sending out information and sharing. So why don't we get started?
Yeah.
I'm going to start with a tough subject for a lot of people, but we're going to have to look at it. This morning I had an open awareness of someone in my field, and a female who I believe was Cypher, and she said, "I'm going to make all men suffer. I don't want them to do well in anything. I want to destroy them. I want to have our own world." And I think she felt that she was representing all females. And I told her I am not for that agenda. She came right out and said it from the astral. And so as I've said this multiple times, whatever's going on and is running as a program is actually, it starts to manifest here. And so, we're looking at all the different types of agendas that are going on, and some reason she's connected to the Acadians too. And so you think, well, the Acadians are from the past, they're not present, they're just a part of our history. No, they're very present. They're very much around, like the Anunnaki, and so there's definitely something going on. And one thing that she showed me is two worlds, one for male, one for female. She showed me that they had a divine female essence that she was going to give to the males, so that the males could then have their female or their feminine counterpart of males. And I'm not really sure what they were pulling from to create a masculine female, but I thought it was quite interesting. I remember a reality where I stepped into, and they literally pulled me into this weird reality, and Hillary Clinton was there, and Tipper Gore was speaking. There were all these bunk beds and all these women, and I realized I was in some kind of weird female society. And I'm saying, what the hell is going on here? I didn't consent to this. I don't want to be a part of this. And I pulled out. I broke free from it. I don't know how I got hooked in the first place. I do know that years back I went to I was working for a nonprofit, and I did get to see Hillary Clinton. I was probably only about 4 feet away from her. And so who God only knows, just being in that space, I hooked in. Another thing that it reminded me of is Cypher, I felt, was also connected to a certain faction from Aldebaran, and a being that I had mentioned in the Andronetalks transmissions maybe a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, and her name was Sharia. And Sharia was, they had one of these outpost planets where all the different species were showing up, and they were just trying to sort things through. The Titans were there, there was these Mars beings were there, and the Andromedans, and they were all kind of cohabiting on this planet. And then Aldebaran shows up with this very aggressive female ruler, and her name is Sharia. And so she was, it reminded me of the whole Sharia law thing. And so, you know, I'm watching this whole thing play out. It was really strange. She starts to dominate the planet. She's very aggressive. She's very pro female-only society. And now, for those women that are, you know, wanting to have their voice, feeling like there's been inequities, I can have compassion for that. I understand that. I think, you know, there should be equal or a respect for one another, but cutting each other down and going about this approach is definitely not the right direction. So anyhow, I did feel that Cypher was connected to this Sharia, this Aldebaranian, and I did talk to them because I've been talking to Erasmus. Erasmus doesn't have this kind of separate agenda. And so I think that we hit a crossroad here. I had a realization of the chain of where this was coming from, although the ball is clearly rolling and has been rolling for a while. And it's really hard to stop or slow down the ball at this point. But, you know, we're going to probably bring it to a revealment so we can get a better understanding of what's going on. So with that said, I'm going to try to find that point in time where you can kind of get the personality type of Sharia, who was an ancient Aldebaranian being and was trying to control all of these other societies in a female domination. Not to say that men are dominating too, but it was almost like trying to deliberately create a separation. So with that said, Chris, you told me you saw an article just this morning regarding some things that were said along these lines regarding the agenda.
Yeah, let's just say that I'm watching that, you know, for a very long time now. I've seen different signs of that here in the US, especially in the UK, you know, Australia. So mainly countries where you have a predominance of white people, I would say, and those are the areas where you can see these different agendas that started to pop up the last 2 years. It started with Weinstein and the Me Too movement. Then the LGBT started to be extremely strong as well. So the feminists on one hand, the LGBT on another hand. Then you have also right now the climate change, and they're pushing really hard with that little that girl Greta Thunberg, and they're pushing all these kids to go in the street and literally to protest against capitalism. You also have Macron that's right now doing this whole tour in the world and proclaiming that he really wants to push that. It's talking literally about war, right? In that article that you showed me, where it's against, the war for climate change, where we need to protect the planet, and therefore we need to go after, what is capitalism and all these people that are greedy and destroying the planet. There is a common denominator between all that. And in order for us to understand really, because it seems to be different events that have no connection to each other, right? Well, there is a common denominator. And we have to go pretty much in 85, where the Protocol of Science 666, it's a book that was written in 85 by all the masters, the top master of all the Freemasons, 33rd degrees. And that includes a lot of very famous people that we know in history. They have a 27 steps of how to be able to reach the full control of the planet. And in that very protocol, they were talking in 85 that one of the main things is to remove the white man, so the white male, heterosexual and Christian or Catholic. That is the main target. So that is connected to that whole thing that you heard with Cypher. They really want to eradicate the white male, not just any male. Not the African male or the South American male, the white male. You see that agenda here in the US. It's happening with that Me Too movement, the LGBT, and all the political aspect of it with the DNC and all that's going on right now. You see that in Europe, where it's the exact same agenda that's pushed through different countries. Australia the same, and those are all countries that have one thing in common: white males.
Right.
So,
but I think I want to say, and I can almost like see through this, that it starts with the white male, but doesn't finish there.
No, absolutely not. That's
and this is what's really strange too is this this Facebook page that this gentleman put out, Michael Kavanaugh. He said that he has this array of pictures of Mao Zedong and his daughter, of Stalin and her daughter, and it looked like Himmler, and to my knowledge, Chloe is the daughter of Himmler. That's why we've had so many problems with Chloe. And then there's Greta, and she's there with Obama, not even with her father, right? Yep. So like he's some kind of surrogate to her. And they're all these girls have these braids, and they're looking like the Nazi youth. So what the heck is going on here, right? So we see, her argument, Greta's argument is climate change. But is that really what's going on? And, what is the undercurrent of the message? And what is this bringing? It's stirring up something, because as she's coming in very forceful and with some kind of energy that doesn't seem natural for a young girl, obviously, has some type of walk-in or programming or whatever, which is clearly evident that it's stirring people up in a way that will go contrary to the very thing that you want. And they do this on purpose. I've seen them do it repeatedly. Yes, we're pro something, but it's creating such a distasteful feeling towards this topic because of the way that it's being done. And I think that has subliminals, that has other things going on. Did she orchestrate this? Absolutely not. She is being used. Children's energy are used to carry out multiple agendas. And we're going to post this Facebook page. I think people will find it quite interesting when you see some of the comments and the images together, and all these young girls all having a similar type of look or presentation. So
what is interesting in this is that first, it's striking to see the resemblance between all these little girls. And what came to my mind, other than the fact that it smells, it really smells strongly like mind control, and definitely mind control. That's for sure. But it seems that first, when it comes to Greta Thunberg, the person that's always with her, that's a woman. She is part of the Soros organization. Mm-hmm. So they're handling her and using her pretty much as the poster child for their agenda. And you're right, there is a complete different agenda behind it.
Yeah, but and who dares say anything to a child,
exactly.
Then even though, you know that they're being played upon, it's a very, very sophisticated way to bring everyone to their knees. Yeah, so you're immobilized.
here is why it's very nasty what they're doing here. Because, of course, she came to the UN and talked to all the world leaders. And she was, I guess everybody saw that. How dare you? You destroyed my dream. You did this, you did that. And she blamed all the world leaders. So, of course, all the guys there, especially in France, all the parliament members were very, very upset. They said, hey, wait a minute. First, the child's place is in school. I mean, she doesn't have any knowledge of what's really going on. Obviously, she's really manipulated. And the fact that she's also mentally disabled. And which is true. She has, it's not a blame here. It's not a judge. It's not judgmental, but she has Asperger's syndrome.
Yeah.
And she has been diagnosed with high depression at 14, really high depression. Can that be the result of some mind control or some type of experience they play on her? It's possible. But what's interesting is, of course, the media have used that in France and everywhere, pretty much in every country, US included, saying, how dare you, you white male, again, go after a child? It's unacceptable. So this is why they use children, because who wanted, to go after a child? Humanly, everyone would understand that you want to go after a child. It's protected, supposedly. Children are protected, but they were saying, wait a minute, that child is molested, literally, psychologically, emotionally. She's literally abused. So, we need to focus on that more than on the message she has. The second thing is, in that very same thing that I was talking about, the Protocol of Sion 666, that thing that happened in 85, they talk about that. They want to take over the world. One of the steps is using the children to become the messengers for the climate change event, so that adults won't be able to fight back. And that's exactly what's happening now. So,
it's spelled out.
Yeah, I was reading that whole thing. They even talk about how to erase the white male and the white civilization and replacing it with what they call the brown civilization, by bringing all Africans and Middle East people, into the white countries. And that's connected to what we call the Pact of Marrakesh that was signed a few months ago. We talked about that in one of the Yellow Vest reports, which is that every country in the world have sent one of their leaders to the UN, and they signed that Pact of Marrakesh. Was connected to the UN. It's called the UN Migration Pact, or the Marrakesh Pact.
This is to remove people from nationalism, right?
This is literally to invade, to have, for example, just see Europe, to have all these immigration waves. They call it the Great Replacement, by the way. That's the name. The Great Replacement tells you what it is, really. Where they're going to bring, 250 million people that are not originally from Europe into Europe. And the goal is to literally, how can you say that? Literally erase the white culture and the history and the religion and everything that have lasted for 2,000-3,000 years in Europe, and literally erase it and bring a new world that's a mix of everything. But they said the brown race specifically for a reason, because they said that they target the white population through the children, through vaccination, through candies with a lot of chemicals, to the air, the water, poison them so they cannot think anymore. They can be controllable, and therefore, once the invasion happened, they cannot fight back. So everything is, everything that I was reading there, I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what's happening. But if you're not aware of that, of course, you see these events as being separated from each other, each having a good cause. The women fighting for the rights that they don't want to be harassed. Of course, everybody can be agreeing with that. Climate change, well, with the planet, yes, there is a lot of pollution. Everybody can agree with that, but on the 3D level. But if you don't understand that all these plans and agendas take their source, the source of these agendas are off dimension through beings like Cypher, Dionysus, Michael, and all the others. Those are the architects pretty much of those agendas that we can see here in the 3D.
Yeah. We've caught Michael being the scriptwriter of some of these agendas too in the background.
I saw him in my dream. I was telling you, I saw him in my dream. He's designing a whole script for me and someone else. pretty much telling me, okay, this is your past, and that's going to be your future. So, I mean, of course, I canceled this and installed that whole program there, but that's really what's going on.
Imposing other timelines and redirecting our destiny.
Yeah.
I've seen him many times. Timeline. It's almost like a script, and we've seen, like, there was a commercial where people were walking around with a script, sitting down at dinner, waiting for each one to talk when they're supposed to. Everything's already, sort of. There's a saying of in the Christian belief system of Calvinism where everything's predestined. So there's no blame, there's no shame. Everybody just. That you're the sinner, I'm the saint, and we're already in the script. And so we're just going to read through the script right now. And that's not really what's supposed to be our reality. It's an overlay inserted reality that has been imposed. And I've seen it a couple times. It's been very, very evident. And a lot of times it's very hidden. And, you're actually going through it and you're like, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. You can't pinpoint it. That's what it is. It's the pre-written script. So but that was great though that you got to see that on a personal level, and we've been talking about this for a little while. I was thinking about it was around 1811 mudflood time period where there was this very strange initiated event that was sort of predicted, which could have also been orchestrated through Michael, because I don't know if it was like someone prophetically said something about a weather event that was going to occur that created these mud floods. And then suddenly they have this like early, United Nations meeting in South America, conveniently, where the usual representatives couldn't be there because of some issues happening in the United States. And so these groups sort of started, it was like a shifting and mixing of balance of who they wanted in there, who they didn't want in there, and they had a way of excluding others. And that was the introduction of this new script of how they're going to rearrange everything. Now, China has been working for quite a while to destroy everything related to their personal history, any ET activity, any of the earlier beliefs of their people, and the migrations and connections to different things. And so little by little they're conforming them to such a way that of course it's dangerous for them to step outside of the box. And so that didn't happen overnight. It's a gradual, progressive effort to erase history, to erase people. And I know that, some people feel that in the United States that was done with the native people, and the native people are trying to retain their own heritage. And it's because of them that we know, the indigenous people held on to things. The Europeans and many other cultures keep getting wiped. And so, it's a struggle to go back and try to remember some of the things that we needed to remember that are critical now, because otherwise we keep going in the same loop in like blind sheep. And so, anyhow, getting back
it's interesting. Yeah. And something else, Jess, in the 2012 mud flood, all the adults disappeared. You can see all these pictures. There's no more adults.
Oh, you mean like was it not 2012? You mean?
Sorry, 1812. Sorry,
1812. Yeah.
1812 mud flood. You see pictures of cities like Milan, Tokyo, all that have the same architecture everywhere. Singapore, Australia, and suddenly no adult in the street, empty streets. And next thing you know, there's this huge migration of children. Hundreds of thousands of children that are moved by train to different cities to repopulate the cities. Where are these children coming from? We don't know. But the second thing is suddenly these children went to certain school, got trained in a certain way, and became the adults that started, pretty much the societies from that time then from that time all the way to here. So it was a wonderful way to pretty much erase memories, erase everything that adults at the time could know. You erase everything, you bring children and literally program them through school and different programs to believe and to relearn history and to relearn everything. So children again has been here a major key element of that mud flood, after mud flood event.
Right. And so how did they orchestrate something like that? Of course, there wasn't the amount of communication that we have now. And so, the world's become smaller because of the internet. I mean, people can speak to each other instantly from around the world. But, I was looking at something with Apex TV, how they have these like kind of masked time travelers, and just about most of them talk about these major events that they see in the future. Now, I don't necessarily believe we have to go through that, and I don't think anything is set in stone. I think that we're creating other realities, and sometimes these things do play out in different parallels as well, just because some human souls need to experience it. They just really want to know what it's like to be in a catastrophic experience, and so they may go through that parallel, but I don't think that is all set in stone. But it does seem like that would be the way. The first thing that you heard, and I don't trust anybody that says, the Arcturians or the Pleiadians said that we need to shut down our grids and reset everything in order for it to be right. No, that's a trick. That's a trap to consent that we're willing to shut off our universal communication. And as soon as they do that, then we can't connect again, and then every man for themselves or woman for themselves, and so it goes. So there's a lot of different things at play here. So, but I mean, we can talk about the broader spectrum of what they want to do, but here is we're going to intertwine this with some of the things that are in the news currently today. So, is there anything else that you'd like to say regarding this topic before we, go into what's going on with the yellow vests in France?
While you were talking, Jess, suddenly I got that, that image. We talk about 1812 in the flood, the mud flood, which was a reset, pretty much, right? Mm-hmm. And we know, I think, was Zoroaster is the one that was bringing a civilization to a certain point and then destroying it, and then
once he got bored, we're a game or a toy to him.
But what's interesting here, it seems like humans start to have their consciousness, evolving and rising to a point where they can start to see the bullshit. And it's almost like when they try to shut down the grids and shut down the whole system, it's also part of another reset. They want to be able to reset everything, and God knows what they want to do when that happens on the consciousness level. Is that a mind wipe, memory wipe? I don't know. But I have a feeling this is part also of that agenda of resetting everything to be able to recreate something new, which is, of course, an advanced step in their agenda to have more control. It's the same thing over. I mean, this is one thing. They're not very creative. It's the same playbook over and over and over.
They're not very creative, but we keep on forgetting. And shame on us for falling asleep.
Shame on us. True.
Time to be diligent in making sure we stay awake this time.
This is why
not give them a pass.
This is why this time is completely different from the past, when we never got a chance to reach a point where we could see the truth and start investigating and see things for what they are and revealing them, so everybody can be aware of it. This is the only time we can do it now in all these time periods. This is why it's a fantastic time right now. This is time of freedom. Truth will set you free. Hey, yeah, absolutely. I agree. It's not pleasant, of course. If someone lives in his little 3D, holographic reality, it's uncomfortable to hear that. But in the same time, I mean, it's important.
Yeah.
We cannot let them have their goals this time. Hell no. So that's all I had to say. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm fired up.
No. We'll finish up that topic, although it does roll into Macron. So there was something very interesting that you said regarding water and fire and the leadership of France.
Yeah, there is a lady that I follow sometimes. She's a judge, a French judge that starts to observe some of the manipulation of the Freemasons that infected literally the justice systems in France. And so since she denounced it, she pretty much got harassed to a point she had to leave for England. And like de Gaulle at the Second World War had to go to England to be able to fight with the resistance. She's doing the same. And she was revealing today something interesting, other than other stuff I'm going to talk in a minute. She says, it's interesting because before Macron, he had President Hollande. Hollande was called the President of the Rain, because every time the guy was going in an event, outdoor, whatever, it was always raining, always. So they called him, he became the President of the Rain. Now she says Macron, since Macron is president, there's never been so many fires. Fires of churches, I don't know how many hundreds of churches have been, so the door was on fire, this was on fire. I mean, a lot of fires, plus Notre Dame, of course. We cannot miss that one. But lately, this last month, because the French people are starting to revealing the list of all the Freemasons that literally hijacked the whole French system, there's, since a month and a half, I thought it was only that factory in Rouen that burned like 5-6 days ago. I discovered to her that there is many others, one in Toulouse, and there are like, since September, there is many factories with chemicals or batteries or all kind of like, specific type factories that start to burn out of nowhere, creating these huge toxic clouds, making everybody super sick. So she says it's interesting. This one is the president of fire. And I thought, wow, we have water for the first one and fire for the last one. That's very interesting.
And what did I say about, all right, so let's just, how many times have I said that he has the energy of Dionysus in the Leonard Crumb? Leonard Crumb is the one that kept on burning many planets in the parallels and has been working his way over here and starting fires in all different locations. Look for the name Leonard, it's out there,
And what is for me, I mean, almost hysterical and outrageous in the same time, is that here he is in the United Nations or the G7 fighting for the fires in Amazonia that are not half what they were the year before. They made it sound like. And he's trying to supposedly pretend to be the guy defending the planet and this and that.
That's what Leonardo DiCaprio is. Leonardo, right? Leonardo, and he's right there supporting everything. The energy of Dionysus comes through.
So here you have the president of fire burning is pretty much France to the ground.
Burning his own nation, totally. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And in the same time, supposedly proclaiming to be the one that wants to help the planet because of the fires in California and in Amazonia, when he's the very one connected to that whole scenario.
So create a problem, solve a problem.
Yeah.
Create a problem.
Wait for it. Yeah.
So, all right, so the fire's burning. I'm going to be the hero. I'll be the one that puts it out. Well, what about the chemicals? Oh, don't worry about the chemicals. They won't hurt anyone, right?
Oh, yeah, no. An hour after it was burning, it's like for the Cathedral of Paris. They already knew what was the cause of the problem before even investigating. The thing was still burning, and they already knew what it was. Okay, a guy smoking a cigarette. I mean, seriously. Here, they said the same thing. Oh, don't worry. It's absolutely non-toxic. There is no problem for your health. 5 days later, because Chirac died, the President Chirac died, I guess, a day later, and suddenly they did 5 days about that, bullshit. While that was happening, people in Rouen, in that city, and not even close to the factory, start to get extremely sick. Headache, nausea, skin burning, lungs burning, vomiting, really bad. And suddenly, the prime minister was forced to start talking into the parliament and says, listen, we decided at the time that those lists are secret. of what chemicals are in there. But we're going to do something special. We're going to reveal some of the ingredients that have been burning. And that's when everybody's like, wait a minute, why is it secret? That's one. And two, when you say some, why are you hiding? And by the way, what about the others of these factories that are burning? Why are all chemical factories or any type of factories that have, I mean, something is, you guys are covering up something. You were very quick to say that it was non-toxic and good for everybody. And now we know that cloud is going through Belgium, through Holland. I mean, what else is happening?
We've got the longest list of human rights violations. That he's literally poisoning his own people, bullying them, not allowing them to have freedom of speech, expression, to peacefully protest. He has violated every single human right violation.
Yeah. In the country where the human rights were signed. I mean, this is, but they love that.
Nobody's saying anything because they're in support of it. A lot of people are talking. The EU is in support of this because if they can get away with it here, they'll do it elsewhere. And everyone thinks that this is, France is an island. No, it's connected to everyone else in Europe.
The EU is under the thumb of the Galactic United Nation, which are pretty much an assembly of all the dark forces that try to control this planet. So let's face it, this is exactly what's happening. The only difference here in the US, Trump is obviously having a different agenda than those guys because he's fighting against that. That's why they hate his guts like there is no tomorrow. There's a lot of people. Every country that says, hey, you know what, we don't want that bullshit of communist nationalism and socialism, whatever you might call it. We don't want that whole one world, one government. We don't want that. Every country needs to go back to its sovereignty and its history and, call it nationalism if you want. But all the countries that are pushing that are under severe attack lately. So there's always all kind of events happening, of course, to weaken them.
Right. I mean, every single month they're trying something else, trying to push the envelope, see how people respond, see what they can get away with, see how they can distract, and then do something over here, the bright and shiny thing, everyone look, and then roll out something else. When no one else is looking, but unfortunately, it's something that, like I said, we need to be in a unified thought that they cannot permeate, they cannot get past it. Like today, I was completely floored when I heard Cypher say that. I wasn't expecting it. The agenda was very clear, and I don't want to be a part of it, and I don't want to ignore it. Because I don't want her to have the power to manifest it. She is not our God. And she, like I said, she tried to sell out a whole bunch of us already with the dog tags on the back of our necks, and now she's trying to do something else. And people say, well, how does she have this power? It's not entirely Aldebaran. I know that for sure. I've worked with Aldebaran. So it's sort of like the 12D Pleiadian group, and she's probably very likely working with them as well, as they make themselves look so beautiful and nice and wonderful. And everyone if you saw her, and if I told you who she is, you would be saying, wow, really like her, I think she's beautiful, or whatever. You have no idea. This is going on in the background. And maybe it would make sense to you if you thought you saw it a little bit more clearly. But either way, I don't want to hear about this stuff. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to I know that now they've made it like you can't even bring this stuff up without being, it's a hate crime or something. And that alone is just bizarre to me. It's just very strange that that also has gone that far.
You have to follow the narrative. If for any reason you just questioning it, it's hate speech.
Right.
So they create all these laws that now, only the LGBT literally have more power than anybody else. It's crazy.
Yeah.
You cannot say anything.
I know. I was talking to someone from Sweden yesterday, and he said that literally, the immigrants come in, and he said, we were all like, oh, these people, they need help. We're more than happy to help them. But he says that they don't want help from us. They want to destroy us. They want to create riots. They want to attack people in the street. He said that he was attacked at least 4 times or so with knives. And I mean, he's I don't know, late 20s, early 30s. What kind of life is that?
Same in Germany, same in England, same in France, same in
these
every
young
country.
Kids, yeah, they're getting their education, they're ready to train, they're ready to go out and work, and the future is blocking them. Yep. It's a major sabotage, self-sabotage, and the rulers, those that are in control, are really making some very, like, they're traitorous to their own nation.
They are. Not talking about the raping of girls. And if you go to the police station and say, hey, I've been raped by a Muslim, you are a racist. So they don't even take your complaint. You're racist.
Which brings me back to Sharia. Why is she connected to Sharia law? Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that woman, that Muslim woman that got up and said, I hate all white men, is like, how could that even be allowed? Who would even put that in the news and support that? And they were all clapping in the room. It's like, what is this all about? I mean, I have a son that's Caucasian. I had a father who was Caucasian. I mean, how could you do that's offensive to us?
Yeah, absolutely. And it goes further. It's
and people cower that they back off. They're like afraid to say anything. It's like, it's outrageous. It is completely outrageous.
There's a whole study was made here in the US and in France when they said that in Europe that the young white males are traumatized because they don't even know what to do anymore.
They're apologizing for the color of their skin. You can't switch this whole thing around. You have to keep everything in perspective, and you can bring up the slave trade and all this other stuff. Not every culture was involved in the slave trade. Not every single individual of one race or another was involved. That's a tragic situation. It was bad that it happened, but not everyone should have to pay for it.
Exactly. I mean, it is very sad, and I can see these young kids now, these young males are even fighting for feminism. I'm like, okay, I mean, seriously, think about what you're doing here. And then they apologize. They're afraid.
They're guilted. They're afraid to not go along with it. They want to be accepted. Ultimately, those girls are going to be manipulated into telling their boyfriends to go away. I mean, it's just.
They create a society. They create a society just of victims. Everyone feels victim of something, And so these guys cannot even talk normally to a girl. Like when I was a teenager, I was, on Sunday and Saturday, the main activity was to go to the mall and go see the girls and talk to them. You cannot do that anymore. That's harassment. I mean, it's crazy. So they create that separation between genders, where genders are afraid of each other. Female of male, male of female.
Everything, they're pitting everyone against each other. I remember I had, when I was in college, it was a required course to do race relations, and which is fine. You want to talk about the story and what happened, your perspective. I have a story too. Everyone has felt levels of discrimination, whether it's because of the way you look, the way you dress, the nationality your family is. Everyone has experienced not a pleasant and good thing. But I noticed that this professor, who was African American, really targeted this young guy from down south. And let me tell you something. He humiliated him like you wouldn't believe. I mean, I almost cried for this kid, and we're just trying to get it. We're just trying to get a grade. The nation is forcing people to go through these experiences, and he completely humiliated this kid. And literally, this kid was apologizing for his family, his, you know what I mean? It was like, it was horrible.
That's part of the reparation agenda, when you have to feel responsible for the actions of your ancestors on minorities. So the white people have to feel terribly sorry for what happened to the slave, for the slave situation here 200 years ago. If I follow that same pattern, then Jess, I cannot speak to you, because we have been invaded by the Romans. And you have Italian background, so what we do here? You see where this is going?
Right. But not only that, like, and I say that my family came over to the United States years after the Civil War. But yet my children will probably feel the effects of the reparations for what happened for the Civil War. My children, my grandchildren, you know what I mean? So, yeah, and that's true. We shouldn't be talking, but you know what? Sometimes people just need to get over it. What you have to realize is the people that are one race now have been another race at another time.
Exactly.
It's all going back and forth. None of it is even relevant at this point. It really isn't. And saying that, sure, you don't like the politicians. Nobody likes the politicians. I mean, they go back and forth. They're paid, they're funded to say and do. They're puppeted. And there's always going to be, some kind of partisan view. And, of course, in this climate right now, the whole thing with Trump being very forceful, not because he's a white male, but because he's a corporate tycoon. I mean, he's a very, very strong businessman. And we don't typically have people with that background running a nation. Typically, it's someone that was groomed with a legal background and more of conforming to the way that politics have been run in the past. So he broke the mold. And I think it just stunned and shocked everybody, because he did things as the way someone in the corporate world would do it, as opposed to the kind of groomed, not groomed, but how can I say, lawyer, legal approach of, kind of the facade and more subtle in the reactions, whereas we kind of have more of a truth that's coming forth with Trump. We whether you agree with him or not, he's pretty much putting it out there what he feels, and that's it. And so you don't see that with the presidents. They almost look like they're heavily mind controlled. Go ahead, Chris.
Well, it's funny, when you start talking, I just got suddenly, it's time to break the mold, the mold, like the shell they put around you, the shell of lies they impose on you. Start to just not accept it and break it, and then you just talk about that same thing. Is not, it's breaking that shell, that mold. That most of these politicians are groomed into that perverted system. And they speak the language, they think that way, they act that way, they know how to manipulate words and speak for 2 hours saying nothing. Trump is the complete opposite. Trump is the only guy that says, you know what, fuck it. And this is why they hate him. He's white, he's male, he's Christian, he's heterosexual. I mean, it is the pure symbol of what they hate.
But, I think they hate it that they're being called out, that they're trying to get away with certain things, and that he's having a very straightforward conversation with them. I don't know everything that he's doing and what he's saying, but what's the key point of ignorance is to do a blanket statement about, we don't like you because you're white. I mean, that's the level of ignorance that, you know, we're supposed to have evolved from. And it's like we're going back into this very strange, barbaric prejudice that doesn't make any sense other than, you know, this really insidious agenda. I don't think anything, you know, I mean, nothing is 100% perfect, but whatever Soros wants to do, I mean, we need to stop listening to Soros, and we really need to put a spotlight on him and hold him up and say, is this the God that we want to bring into our world and everything that he wants? I mean, clearly he's a profane, distorted, troubled individual that probably had some kind of mishap in his life or justification for this vicious attack on humanity. Clearly has been hijacked and is multi-puppeted by astral beings that support him with levels of strength, deception, and deceit. And I'm not just blaming him. This is a whole group of them that are, you know, have to support this new infrastructure that they're trying to bring in. And we don't have to consent to it. We can speak out about it.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing, which is, I mean, it's interesting to observe that Soros, who is this guy? Okay, he's so powerful that he can control the whole UN, the whole the Galactic United Nation, the whole EU. He's controlling everything. All the how you call that? NGO, right? The NGOs.
Yeah.
The National Government Organization. I think he spent $18 billion into all these movements, which is the Me Too movement, the climate change movement. What else? The whole agenda to destroy, you know, the white males. All that is directly connected to him. But it's not just him. So you have, of course, the Rothschild, and you have also all the Freemasons. All that are working like the different fingers of the same hand. All right. But my question is, who was Soros to be so powerful? Remember, we were talking about that he was obviously coming from Saturn, and he was just not a human that was adjunct. Obviously, it was something a little bit more than that. And especially to have that influence on all these governments worldwide, definitely must have must be something seriously dark connected to him. He is literally the master puppeteers on this level down here. So is he working directly with Macron and all that? Well, yeah. Talking about politicians that were groomed into that perverted system, Macron is the perfect example of that.
Well, there's a little element here that people keep on forgetting, and that is we put it from our early childhood, there's an emphasis on the haves and the have-nots. And those that have money seem to have credibility, seem to have more of a say, seem to have power, and are able to wield and create different situations. And so our problem, and this is part of our problem as humans, is that we've bought into this idea that those that have power and money have some level of credibility and that we should listen to them to some degree. And those that are, he has money. He has lots and lots of money. And for those that don't have any money, they will jump to their death for him, just about. You know, I mean, they're getting on buses, they're, you know, going and lying about different things. Though they're selling their soul. They're literally selling their soul out to whatever Soros wants them to do. He is their imposed God, the God of money, the God of power. And that goes for any and all others. that are using their wealth to wield events, to manipulate societies, even if they're in the background. A lot of the wealthiest ones are very hidden. You don't even know who they are. And then there's all these really strange agendas imposed, mostly because of their personal lifestyle. If they have alternate lifestyles and are dabbling in things like Epstein, they're going to make sure that all of that is available. And so, and they will create these gray lines where you can't see past it, and say, well, there's these gray areas, and well, we're not really sure if that's bad. I guess if we reframe it and say it like this, it would be a little bit more acceptable. And so one of my friends, I don't know if he's visiting in Thailand or I don't know, one of those nations, Malaysia maybe, I don't know. And he was saying, well, it's illegal to do this, it's illegal to do that. I really have to be careful what I say. And I said, okay. I said, but is it legal for prostitution and child trafficking? And he says, yeah, that's that's still legal, but all this other stuff isn't. It was like, I don't know, something with using the internet and what you can and cannot talk about. And I mean, it was like so strict. And yet they make sure that this other area is like wide open for them.
It's almost an upside down world they're pushing here. What is wrong becomes right, and what is normally right and divine becomes wrong.
It's because that they have such, this is the thing. They have an excess amount of money, and they have a depraved or vacant, absent soul, right? So they have no conscience. Now, how do you satisfy someone that has tried everything under the sun? I mean, literally, you can go as dark as you want on this one. And that's what these people do. Now, they're going to tell us how we need to live?
Mm-hmm. That smells a lot for me like Poseidon, maritime law, Midas, and the gold. I mean, again, that's something you were talking just now, and I was just remembering that whole Edgar Allan Poe, the last report that you had, I think, like 2-3 days ago about Poseidon, right? Yeah. And it's interesting. It reminded me when he said pretty much that he will reward those who are working with him, and pretty much punish those who are working.
Make them famous. Yeah, you would help them.
And you can see that through the whole Hollywood thing, all the movie stars, the singers, the politicians. I mean, everyone going along with that perverted system is rewarded, become famous and rich. I mean, so yes.
Did you ever notice their eyes? I mean, a lot of them, unless they're completely cloned, mm-hmm. they carry a sorrow because sorrows. They carry the pain of having to actually do the deal, and that is allowing someone to do something to them that they in a million years would not want near them. And it's something very evil that happens. A part of their soul's taken, and they know it. They know it, and you can't hide that from their eyes. And I don't care how much they groom and how much they clean up and fix their hair, how much they train and do their surgeries or whatever. It still is evident. There's a vacancy. There's something in their eyes. The clones seem as happy as can be, like everything's wonderful. They're emotionless like robots. They don't really care. But the ones that still have a remnant of a soul, they know that that was taken from them. In order to, and you don't have to be famous to have that happen to you. I know a lot of people that have been through some very bad situations because of poverty situations and difficulties. I have a lot of compassion for people. I know it's not easy. I was a single mom. I know how difficult things can be, and sometimes people, even like when they're young, in college, they're making decisions. I've had discussions with my son. He has known at least a handful of girls, just that he had known very well, had confided in him that they were date raped. You know, so something's they were taking from people, and maybe it's not even it's date rape or anything else, but there's a taking that's happening here that has to stop. And that's also playing into the whole thing where these young kids are being attacked in different ways. That's creating a desire for separation, distrust, and sadness, you know, that they're carrying through. There's a loss of innocence and a loss of a lot of issues here. And I can understand that our young girls and young guys that are trying to figure out a very complex situation, and none of these issues should be their problem. It belongs back in the hands of these perverse, disgusting, if we knew the monsters that they are, we would never look at them, we would never discuss anything with them, we would tell them to go to their freaking hole in the ground somewhere and get away from us.
Yep. I agree. It's not all beautiful and the illusion. The thing is this: they use magic, layers of this illusion, deception, lies. I mean, they're afraid of nothing. You remove everything from them, all these abilities they might have right now, or whatever they're using, we would see them for what they truly are. And that would be very easy for every human to say, you know what? Hell no. That's it. You're done. You're out. That's why they work with all these different trickeries, because that's the only way for them to continue doing their agendas, because nobody can see really what's going on. And like you said, you know, most of the people, because they have been, you know, pretty much living in limit poverty, they see all these beings with billions of dollars as gods. I'm sorry, that's not the way I see things.
They're flaunting their money. There's a lot of unnecessary people living on the street.
Which is funny because of that new movement come from Europe, the Soros, you know, communism thing. Which, by the way, if just thinking, I'm sorry, my brain is going like very fast right now. When you come back to the picture of Greta Thunberg with Obama, and you know that Facebook that you got from that guy, right?
Yeah.
What is the common denominator between all these different people? Mao, communism, which is same word for National Socialism. It's the same thing. You have Himmler, you have Stalin, and you have Obama. They all have the same agenda. The same thing. And then you have that, I just saw a picture of Greta Thunberg that does the same thing that all these Hollywood people putting one hand on the right eye.
Right.
Which is,
right.
I mean,
hand signals, yeah.
Yeah, covering one eye, which is, you know, the all-seeing eye or whatever that is. That shows clearly how she's manipulated. So anyway, going back to the whole situation of people giving their sovereignty away by admiring all these, you know, tycoons or Soros. What's hysterical for me is that all these agendas, communist, social, national socialism agenda, have one thing in common. They all target the people that are making money. Let's say you have a nice business, you employ a lot of people, you have found a way to make a really good living for yourself. If you make a few $1 million, you need to be taxed 90%. My question is this: will Soros, Bill Gates, the Queen of England will also be taxed 90%?
Of course not. Why would you ever think something like that?
I mean, I would be a reporter.
That's the way they act. It's like, how dare you? You know, it's just, why do we allow this?
I was thinking last time I heard this reporter talk about, but okay, so listening to all these Democratic, candidates for the elections saying, we're going to give universal income, free this, free that, everything free. And we're going to pay that by taxing all the people that makes more than $1 million, which is funny because, for example, talking about, the fact that the video doesn't match the audio, for example, Sanders has millions of dollars. When one journalist asked him, so you ready to pay 90% tax on that? Hopla, he evaded the question. Suddenly, he did one answer. I would love someone in there to say, okay, so does that mean that George Soros will be taxed 90% too then? I just ask that question. That would be beautiful. But nobody dares to do that.
You have to find the astral beings that are behind him, and believe me, I think I'm pretty good at that one.
I know you are. Well,
they literally come to me. They flaunt and brag about what they're going to do. And
they love that.
And people say, well, geez, maybe you've got, I don't know, that some people agree with me, I don't agree with me, but at least I stand up for what I feel is right. And I don't think they have the right to do the stuff that they're doing. I can't tell you how many people that are aware of these beings and they go along with it. There's so many that could be helping and saying no to it as well, and they don't. And they just say, well, we have to be more positive. We're going to do the love and light thing. Yeah, they're abducting people, but we're going to look the other way because they're a spaceship and we want to promote the alien agenda. And, they all have a perspective or whatever. When they start saying stuff like that, I'm like, you betrayed us. You betrayed our planet. You have an open eyes and open ears to a galactic environment, and you're not standing up for the human race. You have betrayed us. And that's why I'm not Miss Popularity on YouTube. I don't have the big, I've not been invited to conferences. I haven't, I don't agree with a lot of. I don't want to be there. I don't want to be consenting to the things that they're consenting to. I would love to meet a whole bunch of people that I know have good hearts and want to see change on the earth, but I don't want to be a part of those that are setting up my labs for others and acting like they're the good guys, showing that they have all the insider information, that they know what the ETs are wonderful and let's connect to them, and I just don't want to be a part of it. And in time, but we're going to have our time. We're going to have our time later, but for right now, boots to the ground. I'm still in mission mode of doing things. I just finished one, and there's others that are coming up. And I will continue doing it until the things break open and they can't have these illusions anymore. The facades break down, and then people will be able to see things a little bit more clearly. You can't force anyone what to believe, but you can at least take off the blinders. And I think that's the best thing, that as a collaborative of everyone, we can do that.
Yeah, and I know for myself, I would take my own example. 2 years ago, I would have been kind of, I would say, afraid or worried to start talking the way I'm doing here with you here, Jess. But I realized one thing, you were absolutely right. You are more protected when you stand up and say, enough, I'm going to start revealing what I need to reveal and put the light, on those beings, than to stay, undercover, pretending that you are doing something good for the planet by, like you said, positive attitude and New Age and all that stuff, love and light and all that crap. And in the meantime, knowing that that you could do something about it, but you don't. So then at that point, for me, there are two groups of people. Those who don't know, they really don't know. And that's okay, they're not betraying the planet. Most of the time they have entanglement, clearing it to be done, and that's okay. But those who knows and literally deliberately engage with the system by fear, just because they want to have the little crumbs that the system is giving them, knowingly that they're participating, giving their energy to that, perverted system. Yes, that I have a problem with.
Well, recently, Peter started telling me about this group called Delphi, and it's based over in England. And for whatever reason, he hasn't come forward with it. And I was talking to some people, and they said, well, why don't you talk about stuff that's more positive instead of bringing everyone through something like that? And I was like, whose side are you on? Why? Well, you want to have a positive message. And revealing information to people is not going to help them. And so I, have been telling people about this. It's a video game called Erica, and it's a program called Delphi, and how they're using people in this money lab. And so it's taking the right stand. It's doing the right thing for the well-being of humanity. It's putting your own personal agenda or career goals on YouTube or whatever you're doing. It's putting that aside, and I don't look to get monetized. I'm probably not going to get monetized for a few different reasons. Some of them are very obvious. So I'm not anticipating that. By the grace of God, people, sometimes they send and assist and support me. But I know that, the universe does support me in one way or another, and I appreciate very much those that support on Patreon. But I will not try to create a big name, do the compromise thing, unless it's organically happening where people are becoming more aware and they're catching on to the information. So, that's why, it's like I'm low key. I don't try to put my face out there. I don't want to be, just, hey, look at, I'm Miss Celebrity or something. I really don't want any of that kind of thing. I just want to get the information out. And, I know that you understand that, Chris.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's extremely important to support your work in any way, possible. Of course, it is something that everybody's, make their own decision. But I mean, I've seen all these channels. I'll talk about these people that, tell you that you need to be more positive. So what would they want you to do? To tell them lies?
No, they want me to not focus. They don't want me to reveal the information. That's what it is. They don't want me to reveal the information. I'm going to actually put that video of Erica in there, and I want people to look at it. They don't want me to reveal the information. The video games are soft disclosure, and they want me to focus on something more positive, supposedly. Yeah. Which is saying the loving light message, repeating what some of the other bigger YouTubers are saying, and then I can hopefully, get to be a friend of one of those people, which I would prefer real friends rather than artificial friends.
So in other words, they're asking you just to embrace the 12D Pleiadian agenda, all these agendas, Enchar agenda, Curry Good agenda, everything.
Most of it's Enchar Draco agenda, I think, is very prominent right now. And the Dracos are, they're jumping on the bandwagon, laughing all the way, saying, do the love and light message. That's a really great one right now, because then you're not going to be disclosing anything, and we get to take over pretty much as we want. And they've selected their male bride, a male bride. So they're all into this whole thing that Sharia or Cypher's into, on the male aspect of things. So, there it is.
So this is why it's very important. I want to give that message, and I want to do it so many times. I always forget. It's so important for listeners, those who appreciate this message. Just with your own, you know, whatever budget you have, but if you can just help support that channel, because there's not a lot of channel out there that will reveal things that are revealed on this channel with Jessica. I mean, I'm not a millionaire, definitely not. But I mean, on my way, I tried to help in any way possible to the session mainly, so, which is, you know, I was obviously a win-win, because I helped disentangle myself, but in the same time, I help support you too, Jess, so you can continue doing the work you do. And there are so many other channels out there of people that have really dark agenda disguised into that love and light, and you see all these people giving them money. I mean, sometimes it's just disgusting to see that. So I mean, it's so, well, it's not strange.
That's why I've stayed away from it, and I appreciate what you're saying, Chris. But I've stayed away from it because I have a hard time watching it. I mean, the first thing, I have information, but you don't realize I don't have a job, and I have to do this, and I'm giving you this information. I'm demanding you give me some money, you know, in some way or another. And I was like, I swear to God, I'm not doing that. I am not doing that.
You know what,
people feel that they want to support it. Truly appreciate it, because a lot of it's coming out of my own pocket of working with people, and I would rather that way than to try to get into this whole thing of any type of carnival manipulation, you know.
I can talk about my example here. 2 years ago when I met you, Jess, I was literally coming out of homelessness. Literally. Barely making a living, barely having enough food, barely having enough. I was trying to save to have a car. It took me.
That was because of a group that you were involved in. There was a group that you were involved in that completely sabotaged you and your girlfriend, and it was not your fault. You are the hardest working person I know.
Yeah, I was working 7 days a week, 2 jobs, nonstop. I mean, but then one day I asked myself, Chris, what is more important? To have a little saving, $50 here and there, or your freedom? And so it's something that everyone has to ask themselves. So at that point, I realized the most important thing for me in this lifetime was to regain my freedom, my divine sovereignty. So at that point, what is, for me, that was my belief at the time. I was like, you know what? Okay, I can spend $100 in something stupid to watch this or that, a movie, whatever. Or I can invest in myself, because that's way more important. This is going to be a long road. I don't know how many sessions I did with you, maybe more than 150 sessions, and we're still not done. But this is the best decision ever. I mean,
and your life has
wish
changed
I would have met you
in a lot
before.
of ways.
Oh my God. I feel, you know, more and more I know more about myself, because for 50 years, Jess, the history of Chris was a lie. I was living in a pretty much a script, pre-manufactured by all these beings with all the entanglements. I had zero freedom, and I felt like I had something wrong with me, because I couldn't achieve what most of the people were achieving. I was attracting all these different situations that were not pleasant, abuse, this, that. I mean, and I almost felt like I was responsible for that, you know, I did something wrong. By working with you, I discovered one thing. Not only that has nothing to do with me, but it was mostly because of entanglement with these dark beings that were just projecting that crap on me. So I realized, you know what? Nobody's going to do it for myself. No one. Like we say, you know, in Belgium, we say we can give you the toolbox if you want to, you know, remodel your house or whatever, but you still have to do the job yourself. And that's what you do. You offer that toolbox, and everyone is responsible for themselves. This is why it makes me laugh when in the New Age, when I hear these beings like, oh, we are waiting for these ascendant beings to come and help us and save us and make us ascend. And that doesn't work like that. Everyone.
We have to remember we are those beings.
You are.
we are the future. We are the galactic people of the future. We are. This is it. And so, like, we're waiting for ourselves in a lot of ways. Yeah, there are others that are supporting us to help us to get back to where we're supposed to be. And we would have been here already if it wasn't for all of these illusions and delusions. And and getting back to you, you got caught up in a wrong group, and one of those groups was to either get you to compromise, forfeit your free will, and be under their rule. And instead, it's a negative energy attack that resulted in it, and just about destroyed you. And that can happen to anyone. And some of these groups are quite insidious. And of course, they're galactic groups. They pull people off of their timeline and pull them out of their bodies. They hijack their bodies. Some of the people end up, complete disarray. Everything, starts collapsing. Relationships collapse. Jobs collapse. Opportunities. It's like you're pulled out of the timeline, so you don't exist.
Yeah,
and so, it's a severe situation. And like I said, I don't want anyone to ever think that you're a very bright, very competent person, and this could happen to anyone, especially in some of these New Age groups, if you're not careful.
Yeah, and this is because one mistake, one belief system, I guess it was forced on me, is that I didn't have any power, sovereignty, or anything, and obviously I was looking outside of me, looking for an answer outside of me, until I realized, working with you, Jess, that the very thing that drove me, that literally was the I say that in English, the moment when I realized, okay, this is it. I draw a line in the sand and I'm going full force, is when I realized that, yes, I was entangled with all these groups and all these major players like Zoroaster and this and that, right? For one reason, because they were using my divine energy to fuel their agenda. When I realized that for me was enough. I will not participate to that. I will never allow my divine energy to fuel those systems to enslave humanity. That is, and it's not just me. I mean, a lot of other beings that are on this planet are used that way. And that's when I realized it was important for me to take my responsibility and say, you know what, if I don't do anything with it, I'm accomplice. So I will fight. It's not about being right. It's about being free. My freedom is to reclaim my divine sovereignty with no fear of what can happen, because at the end of the day, I'm a divine, eternal, sovereign being. So at the end of the day, I'm here on this planet like many others for a reason, not just to enjoy life and maybe have a retirement and go on vacation once a year. Of course, it's pleasant. We all deserve to have a nice life, but we're not there yet. So for millions of years, they have taken away from humanity their divine right of stewardship of this planet and their divine right place into the divine galactic family. And I guess in a few years now, we are reversing the whole process. So yes, of course, they're upset. Yes, of course, they feel like we're doing something, have you noticed how many times they complain like we're doing something wrong because we take away what ours?
Right, yeah.
They play the victim.
Yeah.
That's hysterical.
It is, and once you realize you retain, your birthright, why you're here, your soul agreements, and I mean, I love doing personal sessions. I get to meet everyone. It's awesome, because each person has something really amazing that they contribute, and when they become more self-realized, then they understand that they've come in bringing their abilities, and that they can disconnect from the script that was written for them, and then get back into where they're supposed to be, and things begin to align for people.
Yep.
So and some people, they get frustrated, they don't fully understand, and once they get it, they become completely self-empowered.
I mean, it's an inevitable journey. I understood through that whole last 2 years how powerful, not just me, but as a human, all of us are way more powerful than any books or any channels out there can tell you. I mean, we're looking to, for example, Rodin. I remember that message from Rodin or Andronetalks or Shiva telling us, you're looking at us like we are, masters and this and that, but you don't realize that you're the same. You just forgot about it. And that's exactly what it is. This is why these dark beings, they have no connection with source anymore, so they need that fuel and that energy to fuel their agenda. What they're using,
well, we're the same in a sense that we all tune into the divine source energy, and
exactly,
and that aligns with our own role, and we are all many different pieces of the puzzle of this collective that is supposed to be here for a greater purpose. And it's not about trying to achieve godhood, and we're this power or that power. It has nothing to do with that. No. It's just just being in your proper place. And so when you know you're in a proper place of where you should be, that you could go to sleep at night, and if anything happens to you, you have absolutely no fear, because you've already connected. You're already there. There's nothing that's obstructing you.
And this is a question
I have. Peace, right? So, there's like a running peace, even though there's chaos or things going on around you. You have a deeper knowing and that connectedness. That's acquired through meditation. That's acquired through doing some of this work, and and being true to yourself and who you are.
Exactly. And this is a question I ask myself, and I guess I invite the listener to ask themselves too, is what do you have to lose if you don't do anything about it? Guess what? You cannot complain. But what do you have to lose to just say, hey, you know what if I go check in there and see maybe there is a little more to my story, to my life here. Maybe there's something else here I need to discover about myself. Maybe I can discover that I'm a divine being too. And guess what? If that's the case, I'm going all the way. If I like a piece of the cake, I don't want the whole cake. I want it all. And that is the most amazing journey. I understand that, it's not an easy one. But tell you the truth, this has been the most exciting 2 years of my life. And believe me, I ate shit for 50 years. And even this process hasn't been easy. And I attack left and right. But guess what? You're absolutely right, Jess. Yes, there are moments where you have you've heard me sometimes in situations that were not very easy, and sometimes losing it a little bit emotionally because, it's nonstop. But then you step backward a little bit and observe the whole situation. And every time, every step along the way, when I clear stuff and clear more of these things through the sessions, even now in the process of pretty much releasing all that frustration, like we talked about yesterday, it's a wonderful opportunity to be in that position where I can be facing myself and what is not the true self, being able to see it, be like, wait a minute, that's not me. That's not me. Do I need that? No, I let go of that. I let go of all these feelings, all these emotions. That's not me. That's the story of Chris, but that's not who I truly am. That's the story of me in this lifetime, of course, entangled with all these things that, might be connected to different incarnations. But this is the lifetime, the moment in my lifetime where I can clear thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of all the crap we had to go through. And I can finally have the chance right now, working with you and all the other amazing beings that are participating to helping you, bringing all these amazing information. Because, it's not just me, there are other beings, through the different reports and the voice of the people's voice and all these things, the different reports you have. It's fascinating, and more people awake to that state, to that situation, to that fact, the easier it's going to get for us. Only a few people, just the one from Edgar Allan Poe, the one with the angel, just realizing one being, what one being could do, is incredible. And I love the message at the end. What about if everyone start to take, in their hands their own sovereignty and realizing what they truly are and the power they can truly have.
Well, they have the same light as that angel was using.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That for me is something that I have for a few days in my mind thinking, and it's like stop focusing. Okay, yes, we need to focus on all these things that are going on. This is what the very purpose of the report. But behind it, the very core message is, what about you have that same light within you? Have you checked?
Yeah.
What if it was true? Can you imagine the change you can? It's so powerful, Jess.
Yeah, it is. I really, Poe has been amazing.
Oh,
he's the one that launched me into a lot of this stuff. I started channeling the book in around 2010, 2011, and really took me on this whole journey where I'm at right now.
Yeah.
But what I wanted to do right now, I think it might be a good idea, is I'd like to do have something here where we can all set our intention. They're trying to introduce chemicals and some very toxic things to the French people. Let's set an intention to neutralize those chemicals so no one else gets sick, to stop this madness and cruelty to the humans that are living in France and in the surrounding areas. Let's awaken. Let's all set an intention to awaken to the point of removing illusions that are creating micro wars between the races, the genders, the orientations, whatever that they're using. Let's set an intention that those agendas lose power, and that humans just learn to embrace one another as they should naturally. There was also, we're going to set an intention, so we say we do not consent, we do not agree with any of these agendas that are here to harm humanity, and we shed a light of truth upon everything that's going on in the world, and any of these astral beings are falling apart, losing power. They can no longer manipulate innocent humans or puppet anyone, for that matter. They don't have access here. We're asking that they're completely cut off and that they be discovered and found by Rodin. Rodin's been wonderful. Those of you that don't know who Rodin is, he's Odin. He's been really great about, I've been collaborating and working with him to capture some of these beings, and then he deals with them accordingly. So, and if you know the transmissions and you know how Rodin is, when he captures someone and they're going into some place, he does put them in an alternate place, or he does have ways of dealing with them. And I have that in the Andronetalks transmissions and how he deals with things. That's only one way. But we're gonna, also there's other forces as higher courts. There's others that are paying attention, seeing what's going on. So trust that. Ask to present, if you see some inequities and things that are really bad, ask to present it to the universe, to put a spotlight on it, and to have the parties involved to be exposed. We have that power to do that. We can be a witness to many things, and as humans, let's take back our rights. This is our planet, and anything that comes in here and then tries to alter and manipulate is in violation of that. But if we don't say anything, then it is turned in such a way that is a consent. There was one last thing that I wanted to bring up, Chris, is there was an article about Macron and something about his thoughts on war. I'm trying to see. Let's see if I can find that article, unless you have it in front of you.
No, I don't have it in front of me, but yeah, it's...
I'll read the headline. I think it was in...
Yeah.
Macron's call to war. The world must not sleepwalk into war, Macron says in a speech on reforming capitalism. And that was a Reuters article. So let's see if I can bring that up. In Geneva, the world is going through a profound crisis and should be on the brink of a time of war. French President Emanuel Macron said in a speech on Tuesday, calling for a global effort to address the dangers of inequality, unchecked technology, and climate change. Now it's just like such a paradox, him talking about inequalities, right? In the speech to mark the centenary of the International Labour Organization in Geneva, Macron called for universal social protection and compensation for people whose livelihoods were threatened by technological and environmental change. Meanwhile, what's happening in the nation? Environmental attacks with chemical burning, right?
Yeah. Injustice on people's rights, human rights completely violated. I mean, it's the double standard is...
It's glaring,
Oh my God, I know.
Macron spoke for 44 minutes, far longer than the other leaders. Of course, he got the attention, and he cast himself as the leader of a liberal movement countering the rise of the far right in Europe. His standing at home has been damaged by months of yellow vest protests against economic reforms, including a fuel tax.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you think about, and then in the news in France, they were saying, oh, is Macron the new king of Earth? I was like, what? Now it's not even Jupiter, now it's the king of Earth. I mean, this guy has so much ego, and whatever entity, of course, we know it's Dionysus. But they're so, the double standard is so oblivious. I mean, he will go in front of all the world leaders proclaiming as the fighter for social justice and the climate and the planet and the human rights and equality for all. And of course, that's all, connected to that whole National Socialist agenda, right? The Über Deutschland, the Greater Germany. It's all, Nazi, I would say Nazi, communist, it's Soros agenda. It's the same crap. And it's funny because while he's saying that, he does a great job to make sure that none of the news of what's going in his country is really going abroad, because otherwise, of course, it would look bad, but he can look like the savior. And be careful every time there's someone proclaiming to be the savior, because
the only information that you're getting is through YouTubers, French YouTubers, who are putting their life on the lines just to get the information out. And because they're not English speaking, a lot of people are missing it. Unless you speak French, you don't realize the desperation that some of them are in. And so because you can, this has worked out perfect, that you could speak the language and you're looking at it and can see this, but these people literally put themselves on the line. It's not in mainstream news. They have another script and another way of framing this. Here is one of the quotes that Macron said. I think that chaos is here, and I think it is our generation's responsibility not to wait for a new war, but to look at the world as it is. It's just, and then here's another quote. I believe that today we are on the brink, if we don't care, of a time of war. And that war is present in our democracies. It's the profound crisis we're going through. We can choose to be sleepwalkers, but if we want true progress, we need to make some serious commitments, he said.
So what he's telling you, or telling us here, is if you don't agree with his agenda, automatically you're going to be responsible of the war that's coming because you don't agree with us, and then, we cannot change it, meaning pushing their agenda. I mean, it drives me crazy. I'm not going to say another word because I could be rude here. But when I read that, I was like, wow, of course, if you don't know what's going on in France, they heard about Yellow Vest. I check here in the US. Have you heard about Yellow Vest? Oh, yeah, there was a little protest happened in December last year. I was like, wow, that is crazy. Sorry for that. But then, of course, when you understand really that because they play with words and emotion, and then that Greta Thunberg in the same time did her speech. I mean, the whole thing was orchestrated in a manner that's almost laughable if it was not a serious situation.
Yeah.
But and while he's doing that speech, there are 2,800, I think it's 2,500 serious wounded in 10 months. You have 18,000 Yellow Vests arrested for not even committing crime, just having a little saline water in their bag or a yellow pin. So anything that's yellow, you're arrested. They even arrested 2 tourists, from Germany? 2 tourists, and one guy has a yellow T-shirt. They arrested him. They beat the crap out of him. I mean, it was so bad.
And you predicted that they weren't going to use their yellow vests, and that's what happened, right? They stopped using the yellow vests to not.
Exactly. So now you have Japanese.
They can't do peaceful protests. That they might as well protect themselves, like the protesters in Shanghai. They were literally trying to go after the cameras that have facial identity.
Yep.
Yeah.
And what is
smarter, I guess.
Now?
Yeah.
What is interesting now is that now, since they cannot discern what are the yellow vests from the tourists, they're gassing and tear gassing and also sending rubber bullets to regular tourists, families with children, Chinese tourists last time. I mean, they were pushing them in the gas. The people were trying to get out of the gas, and the police was pushing the tourists back into the gas, the tear gas. I mean, it's insane. That is one. Then you have one policeman. You have 52 police officers that killed themselves. You have one farmer every day that kill himself. You have directors and school teachers killing themselves. You have nurses, doctors killing themselves because, I mean, the pressure on them, it's just outrageous. You have people working for the government of telecommunication. I don't know how many suicides they have in 2 years. I mean, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Didn't you say that the suicide rate is the leading cause of death in France now?
It's the highest cause of death, yeah.
That suicide is crazy.
Between far more than car accident and anything else. Yep.
Wow.
But they don't want to tackle the problem. So every time they talk about too much of the police brutality, they create another story. So was it 3 days ago, the police, because one parliament member was in the street with the yellow vest, and I know this guy, I mean, he has an agenda. It's there for himself. He's not there for a yellow vest. But anyway, he was telling the guys, hey, be careful, guys, because the police there are barbarians. It was recorded on camera, so it became a huge thing in the news for 3 days. That was before the death of Chirac and all that, and before pretty much that factory that burned. That was like a week and a half ago. Suddenly, the police are like, all the police officers, all the unions, all the news are like, oh my God, how can it's a representative of the Republic. You shouldn't talk like that about the police that is representing the Republic of France. And suddenly, next thing you know, boom, there is 3-4 days later, all the unions of the police, there are 5 unions, decided to go for a strike. And they protested, 27,000 police officers in the street. And when some of the journalists that are covering the yellow vest were there, covering what was going on, they were arresting them because they were interfering with the protest. It's like, wait a minute, I'm a journalist. I'm covering the event. No. We know you are filed file S, fiche S, which is normally a file that they have created after the terrorist attacks in France, that anyone that might be radicalized in any way, shape, or form automatically is considered as a terrorist. Therefore, you have pretty much no rights. So they can arrest you anytime. So that guy has been arrested 3-4 times because he's reporting really the truth of what's going on. In the meantime, you have that. And then the next day, to make sure that we cannot really focus on the police brutality, now you have that police, someone working the police station, a very big police station in France, and suddenly out of nowhere, killed 4 of his colleagues. The guy was working 16 years in that police station. But now the story is that, but he was a Muslim. He became Muslim 18 months ago, married to a Muslim woman. So again, they're trying to push that, Christian against Islam, and Islam, the war between Islam and Christians. And I was thinking, wow. So now the whole media is covering the fact that, poor police officers, they're blamed for all the violence, and look what they had to go through now. So they have ways to manipulate the media in some ways. I mean, and in the meantime, they don't talk about, that factory burning because they manipulate and control the narrative. It's so disgusting. They passed a law the last 2 months when everybody was, on vacation, kind of relaxing. They passed so many laws that are so obnoxious. One of them is called La Loi Sapin. Sapin is like pine trees, right, in French. So it's the name of a guy, parliament members, that says that everything that's representing the riches of France, like the beaches, all these beautiful places, parks, forests, now can be sold to any companies if they want to build a hotel, a parking lot, a mall. So it's literally destroying everything that's representing France. Now, go back to that very speech that he made at the UN a week and a half ago. It's exactly what he's doing when he says we have to fight against nationalism. Nationalism means everything that represents France as a country, as a sovereignty, needs to be destroyed. And that is what he's doing. He's destroying everything. He's selling the airport. He's selling the highways. He's selling everything that belongs to France, that made France France. Is killing the farmers, which is the core of France. Literally, this is the roots of France. farmers and these people that are working the land and bring crops and food for they're literally killing them because of the EU regulations. The banks are literally at the brink of complete collapse in Europe, because the Deutsche Bank is, it's even worse than 2008, the crisis we had here in the world, in the US, and then the whole world was touched by that. It's even worse than that. It's literally hanging to a string. And right now they passed a law that if banks have profits, it goes for the shareholders. But if banks have losses, the customers of the banks need to pay for the loss. Second thing, you're not allowed to take your money out of the bank more than, a few $100s, a few €100. If you say, hey, I have 50 grand up there, 50,000 euro, and I want my money, nope, you cannot. They're going to make it so hard for you, it's impossible to take your money back. They do all these things. It's just insane. They changed the pensions, the law about pension. In France, it's in 1936, the workers in the street fought with the system and had paid vacation and a lot of different rights for workers. They were protected. Guess what? They have destroyed everything. There is no more of that. So right now, yes, he's supposing lowering the unemployment. How did he do it? Not by giving jobs, because there's no jobs. It's worse and worse. What did he do? He says, you know what? I'm going to make the laws a little bit different. And by changing the law, we're going to have 1.7 million unemployed people less that will not be able to have access to the unemployments anymore. Therefore, the numbers looks good. Oh, well, look, all the different things I'm doing, look at the unemployment numbers. They're lower. And you have, like I was talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and he was telling me the same thing. 5 million new jobs. How is that possible? Yes, everybody has, instead of have one job, like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, one person, the father, was working. He had 5 kids all going to college, and one person could work. He could pay for everything and still go on vacation. Now, 2 people work 3 jobs and have no food in their fridge by the 10th of the month. So on numbers, yes, there is more job. In reality, no. People work more and have less. And then because they have no more rights as workers, the workers' rights are gone. Now they can work 3 jobs. And if they complain about anything, since there is no more protection, they don't complain. So guess what? On paper, it looks fantastic. Look, people are very happy. They have lots of jobs and they're super happy. Nobody complains. So you see how they work that thing's through? It is disgusting.
Yeah.
And sadly, it's not just France. I'm sorry, I'm fired up here. It's not just France. It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. They're making it. They're really trying to create a greater distance between the haves and the have-nots.
And here that moron is in front of the UN giving lessons to the world that is fighting for the social justice. You got to be freaking joking.
Well, this is the blatant delusion. They've convinced themselves that they're right and that they have the message of the hour and they're the outstanding ruler. And, they're doing this for the benefit because we're helping humanity, and we'll tell you what you need to do. And so, he still is in an illusion that he's probably the most hated man in his own nation. And what are they accomplishing? He's so mind-controlled that it hasn't even sunk in. He really, really hasn't sunk in, and nobody is really going to, just let this pass by. You just can't. You can't look the other way. But it looks like we're coming, close to the end of our...
No, there is one thing I want to add, Jess.
Oh, okay.
You know why they're afraid of the Yellow Vest? Because the Yellow Vest asked one thing. They said, if you work in a company and you do a bad job, the boss that you work for can fire you, right? Because you're not producing what you're supposed to. Well, they were saying the government, the parliament, and all these people we elect are working for us, the people. So we should have the right, if we elect a representative that he doesn't do the job that we elected him for, that we can fire him. That's why they called the RIC, which is a referendum of citizen initiative, and which simply says that people that are elected representative are only elected for a very short time, and they can be fired anytime if they try to work against the people. They are so afraid of that. So the Yellow Vests are not for revolution, and like in 1789, they're just for fairness. They said, we are all for people making good money, having great companies. We're all for that. But we want to have control of what's going on in the government, and they're freaking afraid of that.
Right.
And
right. Well, these are not, they're definitely not thinking about them as, supporting. It was at one time that, people were excited. You had your own industry, nation traded with another nation. Everybody got what they needed. Somebody's, got the products that they needed. Another one created it. However it worked out. I mean, we've been doing this for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, merchant trade, and one nation joins together in a peaceful way, exchanging, different things that they have to contribute. And so everything is upside down and backwards. It's the destruction of any type of creative energy. Of course, they don't want free energy. They don't want anything positive, and the people who want to be productive and they want to work, they can't find work. None of this makes any sense. Doesn't add up. It's an agenda of elimination of humanity. They're just trying to say, we don't need you anymore. We don't want you anymore. We're just going to discard you. We're going to throw you in the trash. You have no other use for us. This is the transhumanism. I mean, we can go on and on and on, all the different things that they're doing right now, the depopulation of humanity, the agenda to allow and introduce a war of destruction, the whole apocalyptic thing, the one world order, let's get everyone under control and rule. I mean, it's just the same game, all different ways that they try to play it out. If we don't wake up, then they continue.
And it's because we wake up, and some people wake up that now they're saying, all right, you want to go against the system? No problem. We're going to burn some factories. We're going to make sure that we're going to pollute the air. We're going to make everybody sick.
Sure.
We're going to make you sick. Yeah. So, it's really time to wake up now. I mean, seriously, it's getting...
We just send the intention. Let everyone send the intention.
Absolutely.
It's much more powerful than you realize.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll keep having these discussions. It's free speech here. It doesn't hurt anything to speak up and say something. I'm not saying get yourself arrested, but and here, like we had this whole distraction with Storm Area 51. People are looking for different ways to avoid the subjects that are not pleasant to look at and to talk about. But if they don't, none of this stuff's going to make any sense. The disclosure will come. The disclosure is not going to come unless we get some of these leaders to get back off and stop trying to manipulate and destroy humanity. So I think that's the bottom line. And Chris, you did an amazing job of compiling information and really paying attention to what's going on over there. Thank you so much for your time and effort. Appreciate it. And looking forward to the next report.
Thank you, Jess. It was a pleasure. Talk to you soon, guys.
Okay.
Have a beautiful day.
You have been listening to Andronetalks Radio. Join us on YouTube channel Jessica Errol Morocco and visit her website at www.readingsbyariel.com.